car originally came with a flashlight, or what they call a torch, with a 12-foot lead. You'd plug the positive and negative into the holes there, and that was long enough to walk around at any tire or into the trunk to see what's in there with your light.
Hi folks, I'm Nate with the Two Guys Ride. Today Rob and I are in beautiful Mississippi, and we are here with a beautiful 1962 Rover 100, and it belongs to Keith. Keith, thanks for being with us today.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Man, what a fantastic piece of automotive history here. Now, you know, when I'm looking at the front, Keith, that Viking head just, and it's an English car, right? But why it has a Viking head, which isn't necessarily, I mean, it has a tie to
Scandinavian.
It's Scandinavian, yes. Okay, so I noticed on the front it says it's a P4.
This is from the P4 series that Rover produced. The Rover company made this from 49 to 64, the P series, P1 through P7. And this is the P4, which is a most recognizable one. And the P4 actually was produced in 8 different engine configurations. And the body changed a little bit during those years as well, but not too much.
So the engines were ranged, I think they ranged, we said, from like 60 to what, 110 horsepower?
60, which is a four-cylinder car.
Okay.
To 110, which is a 6-cylinder car, a 2.6 liter, which is 160 cubic inches.
So we'll take a look at the engine in just a moment, but you know, the Rover also made Land Rover and Range Rover, and you can see the similarities just from your, I believe, your turn signals, and then the white lights below had a special English name.
Stationary lights.
Stationary lights.
Instead of parking lights.
Anyways, these were never actually imported and sold in the United States.
The P4 never was. This was imported by someone in New York years ago, and it's been to different car shows, different owners, and finally landed in my lap a few years ago.
Okay. And it has obviously changed color a couple of times. It must have been originally a blue.
It was originally royal blue according to the heritage certificate. So as far as I know, it may have been painted one time to the current green color.
Yeah, you can just see some of that royal blue showing through. So yeah, I think it's probably been one paint job. All right, can we open it up and take a look at the motor? I absolutely love that Viking head. Oh.
And it's got the Viking ship down here.
Which right there in the logo, yes. So this is actually not a P4 engine.
That's true. The P4 engine is exactly like this one. In fact, let me describe a few details. This has got it's called an intake over exhaust engine. It's got an intake cover here. It's got an exhaust cover down here, but it's got one camshaft. It's got overhead valves, but the exhaust is in the block. It's a flathead block for the exhaust, but the intake is overhead. So it's an intake over exhaust engine. So it's half flathead, half overhead valve. And it's a 2.6 liter, and it's got a 2-inch SU carburetor on it. This is an aftermarket air filter. The original air filter was a huge muffler-looking device that started all the way from the heater box, came all the way to the front, had 2 tubes protruding here, completely covered the engine, and I just discarded that and put the modern air filter on there so I at least work on the engine and see what's in there.
Okay, so the question that bears in mind is, why did you change it in the first place?
The previous owner was traveling down a 50-mile-an-hour road from here to Natchez, Mississippi, 100 miles, 50 miles an hour, and a piston broke.
Ooh. Okay.
So the whole engine was just destroyed by that. So he contacted someone in England, found out that the P5 motor is exactly the same size and fits in there just fine. So he ordered that. And
you actually get a few more horsepower too.
Yeah, instead of 100 horsepower, this is a 115 horsepower engine. Got a little higher compression is the primary reason for that. Got an 8.8 to 1 compression because as the fuel got better in England, the petrol, as they call it, they were able to use higher octanes, and therefore we have higher compressions.
Okay.
And when we put this engine in the car, we tried to drive it, but we could not get it to any gear. The gears kept grinding. Turns out the clutch was not fully releasing, and we contacted England, and they said, oh, when you put a P5 motor in this car, you have to shave the flywheel 1/8 of an inch so that it will fit.
So it will fit.
We pulled the engine back out, took the flywheel to the machine shop, took exactly 1/8 inch off of it, put it all back together, it's run fine ever
Works
since.
fine. Wow. Now, factory, it was rated at about 24 miles to the gallon.
That's what the factory claims for this motor.
What did you get?
Driving around the neighborhood, I typically get 14 miles per gallon. When I drive it at 50 miles an hour all the way to Natchez and back, a 200-mile trip, the best I've ever gotten is 17 miles per gallon. And it's tuned up just fine.
Okay.
That's just the best it'll do.
Maybe it's the exhaust you took off.
That's probably it.
That's right. All right, let's close the hood and we're going to take a look down the side here.
Okay.
At that time, were the mirrors, do you know if they were an option or if they were standard equipment?
The mirrors are typically an option in British cars, and usually the dealer would put them on. In most British cars, I assume it's the same with the Rover.
Right. Okay. And we have, I've always thought the Rovers have large tires. I mean, they seem large compared to the size of the car. So do you know what size tires were running?
205 70 15, and that's the typical tire that came on the car.
Okay.
So we just put back what it had on.
What it had on there. Man. All right, of course, you got the Rover 100 badging here. The windshield wipers, were they vacuum run or?
Oh, they're just electronic, just a switch on the dash.
Well, they were electronic.
They're both supposed to actually come down below the windshield here. It has a little roller on the windshield wiper here.
Oh,
It's
look at
supposed
this.
to roll down and to be seated in this little spot right here. That one won't do it anymore, but it's still got the roller, but I just can't get it to function as it's
Well,
supposed
that's
to.
interesting. Just that little engineering detail to roll. Yeah.
This is a little roller. Right?
Yeah. Wow. Of course, this is your natural air conditioning vent.
Or heater.
Or heater. Yeah. Did the car come with a built-in heater?
Oh yeah, it didn't have air conditioning though. But yes, I got a great heater. It keeps it really nice and toasty during the winter.
You did have an antenna.
For the radio.
I suppose that was an option too, to buy the radio.
Probably so. It shows on the heritage certificate the radio was an option that provided by the factory.
Okay. Coming back here, I love the suicide doors here. I mean, that is just such a neat look.
For easy ingress and egress for your passengers that way.
Now, there are several famous people that have had Rover at 100s.
Right. Grace Kelly, who became Princess Grace of Monaco, owned one. King Hussein, when he was young, his very first car he ever bought was a Rover 90.
Okay.
So King Hussein is one of the notables. It is said that Queen Elizabeth would use this when she wanted to sneak out and do a little shopping without people knowing. This is a car that was not too pretentious, but it still had the luxury inside. It's actually considered a banker's car because the banker wanted the opulent interior, but without being showy like a Rolls Royce or a Bentley. So she could scoot around in it without being noticed, from what I've read.
Interesting. All right. Let's come around to the back here. I'm assuming these are these are like hubcaps or
Wheel covers.
wheel covers.
Up on.
Okay.
It's got the Viking logo in there as well.
Oh, it does in the. Oh, that is nice. Okay. Coming to the back here, of course, can we take a look at the inside of the trunk?
Sure.
Oh, wait, before you do, this is the original license plate.
The original license plate, front and rear, came from England. I looked it up years ago where the DLT came from, which province, but I don't recall where.
Okay, but it was actually a province in England. It wasn't like, okay, someone just threw on there.
It's got a fairly large trunk with all the typical things I have to carry to car shows and all.
Yeah, and there's an interesting item in here that I want you to mention. It's original to the car.
Right. The air pump came with the car and actually has a space where it clips onto the front, but it doesn't clip there very well anymore. But it came with the car.
Show us again where it clips to the front.
Right here, it's got the clip that goes there, another clip up here at the top. And it's supposed to fit in here in some fashion.
Okay. I mean, that is really neat. I mean, can you imagine just having a pump like that? I mean, those legs fold out and there you sit.
That's right.
Wow. Hey, but it never fails, does it?
Well, obviously.
It probably still works just
I
fine
would
today.
think so.
Now, of course, you've got your fuel fill right here.
Right.
And do you run just regular unleaded?
I run non-ethanol. I could take 87 octane because the compression is not that high, but I run 93 in it anyway. I don't drive it very far, very often.
Okay.
So the 93 non-ethanol just for safety's sake.
Yep. Now, let's step into the interior and talk about the front.
Okay.
Now, there are several unique things about this, but first you're going to notice that that's real wood.
Real wood, yeah.
Right? So you wanted the banker feel, you wanted that opulent interior. Tell us about the adjustable armrest.
It does have a 6-way adjustable armrest on here that allows it to be moving up and down. The passenger side does go up and down. This one now seems to be a little bit, there it goes. It's got adjustable notches on there.
Wow.
The handbrake is called a shepherd's crook. This is what you use to put the brake on, and of course to release it. There we go. But a shepherd's crook is the name.
All right. Now talk about, you got some stems that are sticking out right and left. Tell us what those are.
Certainly. On an American car, typically the turn signal's on the left. In this case, the turn signal's on the right. This is the headlight high beam, low beam switch. And this is my electric overdrive actuator.
So how many times you go down the road and hit the electric overdrive when you're trying to turn?
I'll be driving to want to make a left turn, and I'll just hit that by mistake, and I just realize, no, it's the other side over here. You just got to keep that in mind.
And then a banjo style sort of steering wheel here, but then this is all horn, right?
All horns. Got, of course, the Rover Viking ship in the middle there again.
Oh, that's got a good horn.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Can you go over briefly this switch right here? This is a push button.
There's a push button switch here. We have the fuel gauge. Tells you what's level in the fuel tank. But when the car's running or when the ignition is on, if you push this button, it turns this gauge into an oil pan level gauge. There's a float in the oil pan.
Isn't that neat?
So you can check the oil when you are sitting still or when you're driving down the road to see what your oil level may be, which was a unique feature for this. Another interesting thing, there's a little plug right here with 2 holes. This car originally came with a flashlight, or what they call a torch, the 12-foot lead. You'd plug the positive and negative into the holes there, and that was long enough to walk around at any tire or into the trunk to see what's in there with your light. But unfortunately, the light doesn't exist anymore.
Okay. Now, underneath the radio, you've got some rotating dials. I'm assuming they would be to adjust the air vent?
Yes, we have the air vent up here that goes, opens and closes it. You have the heater switches here for upper vent, lower vent, and the hot and cold.
Okay, and then
the choke down here.
That's the choke. Right next to that, there's another.
All right, that's my fan switch. Cigarette lighter is over here on this side. They call it a cigar lighter.
The speaker, of course, for the radio was right in the dash. Then you had a clock above that?
Not a clock, non-functional, but it had one at the time.
Okay. Under dash lighting, I see.
That's true. Lights come on automatically when you open the doors.
Okay, and then just dummy lights, I'm assuming for engine temperature, turn signal, high beams.
Yep, typical lights come on here.
Okay, and then top switch?
Windshield wipers.
Okay.
Windshield wipers up here.
And then this bottom one?
I'm sorry. This one is windshield wiper. That one, I don't know what it's for.
All right. So, folks, if you own a Rover 100 and you know what that is, let us know in the comments below. Okay. And then finally, right here.
That is for a fuel tank reserve. When your tank is down to 2 gallons, it'll stop pumping the fuel. So you have to push the reserve over. That gives you the last 2 gallons.
Okay.
That's a reminder that you're running out of gas. When you run out, you flip it over there, and then you get the last 2 gallons.
Get to a gas station.
All
right. Now, down here, you've got an interesting shift. First of all, it's how many speed?
There's a 4-speed on the floor.
Okay.
Then the electronic
overdrive. However, there is a quirk in this shifting. So I'm just going to let you talk about and demonstrate it.
That's true. The English call this an idiosyncratic shifter because there's a ball there. Because the actual shift lever is way up here, which you couldn't get a shift. You couldn't shift it with it being that far up. So they put the transition in there. So when shifting, instead of just moving your hand left to right from second to third, you actually have to twist with your wrist in order for it to work. And some of my hot rod buddies who tried to drive this car before, they weren't able to make it shift because they were not familiar with the wrist twist that's necessary.
All right. Now, there's 2 more things I want to talk about in the front here. One is you've got a mechanic's tray.
We have a mechanic's tray here.
Complete with all the original tools.
All the tools come with the car. It's interesting, this car was originally royal blue, but they have the correct paint for the current car color.
I wonder if they replaced that. I wonder if someone ordered it.
Probably so, but everything else is in there. And this is a type of a tar base. So actually the tools don't come out very easily. They're just kind of stuck in there. But at least they're all still here.
They're all still there.
That's right.
Then you had a glove compartment, I'm assuming.
Large
up
glove
there.
compartment, goes back about 18 inches, got plenty of room in there.
Wow. Okay. Seats are vinyl?
Vinyl seats, I think they originally came with leather. The previous owner had them recovered in vinyl.
Okay.
And of course, it's got the little seat separator here that
Yeah.
each seat moves forward and back independently.
Okay. And do the backs tilt at all?
Their backs are just stationary.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take just a quick look back here because, you know, being that this was a banker's sort of a car, you would have had some luxury items here. Like you've got your own separate ashtrays. You've got storage.
There's storage here. The ashtrays up here. You've got center armrest there that keeps things separate there.
Which is nice because you can print, yeah, just like a modern car, you can put it up or put it down. But
There's your little door pulls here if you want to get in and out a little easier.
okay. Wow. I love that suicide door look on the Rovers. That's just so cool. It's interesting in the back windows here. You've got 3-piece black back windows. This is what, before they had learned to curve glass as much?
I don't know.
Or why was that separated? I know there was a point. So maybe, again, if you're watching the video and you understand why that was made like 3 separate panels, let us know.
That's true. Good question.
There was a point where they had a hard time curving glass, and maybe they could curve it this much and this much separately, but not the whole piece. I don't know. Or it was just, maybe there were some different things they put in there. Not sure. All right, let's head back up to the front. So, Keith, what a magnificent car. I mean, wow. So, do you have any future plans for it? Are you going to do some more repairs on it? Are you going to just keep it the way it is and enjoy it?
I bought it in 2007 from a friend of mine, $4,000. It was just like this when I bought it. I've just maintained it, haven't improved it, haven't torn anything up. It still runs and drives just like it did then, but I'm just going to keep it as it is. It's not a valuable car. It's great for winter time. The heater works so well, and it's got such a large back seat and trunk. We go to a car shows in the winter, or if it's pouring down rain, I don't want to take one of my convertible cars.
Yeah.
Just put this out in the rain. It's not a valuable car. It just doesn't leak. So it's a very pleasant car to drive in situations like that.
Well, Keith, thank you so much for sharing your time, your expertise, and your beautiful Rover. We sure appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
And thanks for watching.